Hello, Steve Fletcher here, and welcome to the Vinyl Corner, my monthly blog where I dive into all things vinyl. In particular, I take a look at the purchases that I've made this month. Some new ones, some old ones, and when I say old ones, I mean, you know, old vinyl, but are new to me. I guess I think that kind of makes a bit of sense. I also take a dive through my archive in alphabetical order. Today we are taking a look at H for anybody who's taking notes. This is the Vinyl Corner for October 2023. It doesn't seem like 2 minutes since I did September, but here we are. And I've got a couple of nice ones to show you and a few little stories to go with them. Before we get started, can I please ask you to like this video? If you're on YouTube, please subscribe. It really does make a difference. It doesn't really do very much for you because you can watch these videos whether you subscribe or not. But for the YouTube uploading person, that would be me, it really does make a huge difference to the growth of my business, how well that business will feed through the YouTube matrix and algorithm. And importantly, I know we're not supposed to talk about it, but it does affect how much money I earn from these videos, which is a real big impetus towards whether or not I carry on doing them. So please, it does make a massive difference that you subscribe. Right, let's crack on. So the first thing I'm going to look at is two old ones. For people who sort of regular watchers of this video will know that I spend quite a lot of time going into charity shops, what you American people would call thrift stores, I suppose, you know, second-hand stores, to buy a lot of vinyl. You don't always find great vinyl stuff in charity shops. Usually it's, you know, Burt Bacharach sings lift music classics composed by James Last, you know, on organ, you know, played for fiddle and flute, arranged for sousaphone, you know, that kind of stuff that you just think, how have anyone printed this on vinyl? Why has anyone printed this on vinyl? But you do occasionally drop lucky. And I did drop lucky with these first two. And I'm going to show them as a twosome because I do have a bit of a story to go with them. I did find them both on the same day. I don't think I found them both in the same shop, but anyway. So we've got Ralph McTell, Streets of London, and Billy Connolly, Atlantic Bridge. Now, why are these two together? I mean, other than the fact that they're both folky artists, or, you know, Billy Connolly was in those days. I mean, this is from 1976. So, you know, Billy Connolly was, although his star was on the ascension, he was still sort of, you know, playing in clubs, acoustic guitar, singing songs, telling stories, funny stories, you know, but that kind of idea. Now, why are these two together? Well, I have a rather irritating story. We'll start with Ralph McTell. Now, most people know Ralph McTell from his pension, which is the Streets of London song. This is a compilation album that I found. I mean, it does have Streets of London on it. I first, however, didn't get to know Ralph McTell via Streets of London. I first heard Ralph McTell when Billy Connolly did his TV show, Billy Connolly's World Tour of Scotland in 1994, I think, which would make me, you know, 13, 14 years old. Not old enough to watch it, really, but I did. And Ralph McTell did a lot of the incidental music for that program, and it's brilliant. You know, and as a sort of budding musician, I mean, I was only, you know, on the cusp of taking the leap to being a musician in those days, in sort of mid-90s. I was still very much like, well, where's that music? Who does that music? You know, interested in that kind of stuff. And Ralph McTell is who it was, who did the score for that. Fast forward a good, you know, 10, 15 years, and, you know, I was very much a musician, and the opportunity came along to see Ralph McTell in concert, which I leapt at. I used to go then, I still go now to a fair few folk clubs around the area, acoustic music clubs and stuff like that, and this particular club that I was going to was putting on the Ralph McTell concert. They'd hired a venue. They didn't do it in the normal little place that they did it in. They hired a venue in Barnsley called Birdwell Academy, I think. I might be wrong about that. And put this show on. And we got tickets, went to see it. Great show. Had a really lovely time, etc. Now, the annoying thing that then happened was the next sort of month, couple of weeks later, we went to the club, the folk club that we went to. And now, did everyone have a good time at the Ralph McTell show? Yeah, great. What about that though, eh? Billy Connolly being there as well. And I was like, I'm sorry, what? Billy Connolly was there. He was, standing. Did anyone get to chat with him at the bar? He was having a nice little chinwag with everyone. And I was like, what? Yes, so Billy Connolly, as a friend of Ralph McTell, apparently Billy Connolly was playing in Sheffield City Hall then either the night before or the next night, something like that. And he'd obviously taken this opportunity of a night off to go and see his pal Ralph McTell in concert. And then, during intermission at the end, stood at the bar having a chat with whoever wanted to have a chat with him. Now, I have to stress, this venue that we saw Ralph McTell at, it was a tiny venue, probably no more than 300 people. The bar area was like a tiny little coffee shop bar area just at the side of the venue, and it was probably not much bigger than a large kitchen. How do you miss Billy Connolly standing in there? And I did. I didn't see him. And I love Billy Connolly. I adore him. I think he's fantastic. So it's always been one of my great dreams to see him live. He's not going to be touring now. He's obviously not in a good way with his health. But that notion, and I never did get to see him live, but that notion that I was in the room, and a tiny room at that, with Billy Connolly, and I didn't see him, it irritates me to this day. But there you go. What are you going to do? So I saw this. I've heard quite a few. My dad had a few tapes of Billy Connolly early live shows from the 70s. They're always hilarious. He doesn't swear as much as he normally would do, but he's talking about hilariously cringeworthy, squeamish, funny things, singing really funny songs. This, it's called the Atlantic Bridge album, and the reason it's called the Atlantic Bridge album is because he played two shows he played two shows in the Carnegie Hall. He played one in the Carnegie Hall in Dunfermline in Scotland, and two, he played the second show at the Carnegie Hall in New York. And both excerpts from both shows are on this. So yeah, the first one is from Dunfermline. Second half is from New York. So yeah, it is just a really good way, and it's kind of the thing that I would do if I was honest. If I was playing such a thing as my alter ego, the Breaded Churchman, when I do my folky shows, that's the kind of thing that I would do. I'd be like, oh, I'm playing Carnegie Hall there, and I'm playing Carnegie Hall there. There's a live album in there somewhere. It's the kind of thing that I would do. So yeah, there you go. This one, this is brilliant. This is Boys and Girls by Bryan Ferry. There it is. But that's the cover. Right there, I was showing you the wrong thing there. So this is Boys and Girls by Bryan Ferry. There's the cover. Now, what drew me to this? I've heard people mention this. I've read a few... I do read quite a lot of musician biographies, autobiographies, and quite a lot of them do make mention of the Boys and Girls album. And when you look at the sleeve, it's not hard to see why. Because it's literally a who's who of famous musicians have come to play for Bryan Ferry. And not, actually no, saying famous, obviously there are some famous musicians on here, but there's also a lot of famous session musicians, which might not be sort of famous names on the street, but are famous names to sad geeks like me who dive into every possible syllable of everything that's on a record. So, you know, you've got people like John Carrin on here. Bryan Ferry, obviously, is on here. Guy Fletcher from Dire Straits. This guy, Omar Hakim from Dire Straits as well, played on The Brothers in Arms. Chester Kamen, Tony Levin, Andy Newmark, Nile Rodgers, you know, David Sanborn, famous saxophonist, Ruby Turner, vocalist. Just everyone is on here. Plus, some fairly big names, such as Mark Knopfler on guitar and David Gilmour on guitar. So that drew me to this album straight away, and I did listen to it like as soon as I got home. You know, I was like, right, put this on, let's listen to this. It's from 1985, and boy does it sound like it. It's like if the 80s, you know, just threw up the 80s on your speakers. This is what it sounds like. It's all loud and synthy and bombastic, and basses going wah, wah, like that and stuff like that. Some ridiculously amazing guitar solos. It's brilliant. So I really, really enjoyed listening to this one, and I'm very, very glad that I found it. So those are the new old ones. When I say old vinyl, I mean printed back in the day, you know, in this time before, when vinyl was it, and you know, before vinyl went on the slide and then had this resurgence. So that's the old stuff. New to me, but old. This one is the new one that I've bought this month. Porcupine Tree, The Incident. If you don't know Porcupine Tree, not many people on the street do. They're fairly big though. They played to, you know, tens of thousands of people. I went to see them last year at Wembley Arena in London, along with, you know, 12,000 other Porcupine Tree fans. So they are quite big. The lead guitarist, lead singer, lead songwriter, Steven Wilson, is prog god royalty as far as I'm concerned. But they're absolutely amazing. This album, The Incident, was their last album for a very, very, very long time. They took a hiatus in 2010 and only came back in 2022 with the Closure Continuation album, which is very good. This one, if you're going to get into Porcupine Tree, people sort of, there's three that you kind of need to sort of look at really as a sort of casual fan. There's this one, The Incident, there is Fear of a Blank Planet, and In Absentia. And I would say this one, The Incident, is probably the most immediately friendly, accessible one. There's some great stuff on there. It does get a little bit derided by sort of hardcore prog with a capital P fans, but I really, really like it, The Incident. I bought it. I was being a bit churlish and a bit childish. Steven Wilson has a solo album. So I've just released a new solo album, and it's rubbish. I'm sorry, Steven. I love you. I really, really do. But the new album that you got out, for me, in my opinion, just me listening to it, because I'm the only person who I care about the opinion of someone's records, I think it's terrible. So and it's just not at all what we know Steven Wilson is capable of as an artist. You know, it's like if you know, Beethoven came out with, you know, a symphony that was just C, F, and G, with some very strange synthy MIDI drums that sound like, you know, the Energizer Bunny hitting this pick tin. Anyway, that's the rant and the rave over with about that. So I bought this in sort of protest to say, well, I'm not going to buy your new album. I'm going to buy an old one that's brilliant. How childish am I? But anyway, there you go. So that's what this is. So yes, Porcupine Tree, The Incident. You do owe it to yourself to get into Porcupine Tree. Like I say, The Incident, Fear of a Blank Planet, In Absentia, brilliant album. Steven Wilson, I can't take you away from you. Your new album is not very good, but, you know, the Hand Cannot Erase album, the Raven album, even To the Bone, I really, really like as albums. They're absolutely brilliant. So yeah, he's got some fantastically good stuff out. It's just a shame that for me, his new album is terrible. But there you go. So that's the purchases I've made this month for October 2023. Now what we do is we then take a random dive, not really random actually, a pre-planned dive into my vinyl collection and just talk about some other stuff that I've got. And today we're on H. Now last month we did G and we did Genesis. And this month is H, and I actually only got one artist in my vinyl collection that falls under the H category, and it ties in very conveniently with Genesis because it's Genesis guitarist or ex-guitarist Steve Hackett. I have 3 of his vinyls in my collection. So we're going to start with the new to me old ones, which is kind of, if you're going to get into Steve Hackett, these are the ones that you want, because if you go and see him live, he'll do a big chunk of Genesis stuff, and then he tends to do a few selections of his solo stuff. And what you tend to get with his solo stuff is you get some of the really early stuff, and you'll get a couple of songs off his most recent record. So he does a real bookend thing going on, loads of Genesis. So these are his first 2 solo albums. The first one in particular is a brilliant album. It should have been, some of this stuff should have been on Genesis. It's brilliant, certainly for a prog lover. He recorded this album in 1975, 76, I think. Yes, 75. As far as I'm aware, it came out after Genesis had done The Lamb Lies Down on Broadway, which again is another phenomenally great album. And I do wonder, I haven't asked him, but I do wonder if Steve Hackett thought then, they knew Peter Gabriel was leaving or had left by that point. And I do wonder if Hackett had thought, I better start doing some solo stuff at that point, but I don't know. It's great though. I mean, just from this, literally, Ace of Wands, Hands of Pieces, Tower Struck Down, Shadow of the Hierophant. If you look at any live video of Steve Hackett doing Shadow of the Hierophant, it's phenomenally good. It's got this great repeating refrain which just builds. It's fantastic. And I love it. So I love this album as well. This is Spectral Mornings. And again, he's done a more of a recent live record sort of celebrating this album with a lot of live stuff. He does do a lot of live. I mean, Every Day features pretty routinely in his set list. It's a great song, and I do need to get round to doing a rendition of it. There's a guitar cover tuition version thing. It's a great one. You've also got things like Clocks, the title track Spectral Mornings. It's a great album. It really, really is good. And it came out in 1979. So those are the really early ones. This is a new one, and as you can see, it's been signed by Steve Hackett. If you order stuff from his web store, sort of pre-order stuff from his web store, he does sign it. I've got loads of his autographs. I'm very, very happy about that. This is At the Edge of Light album. I really like this one too. In particular, it's worth buying this one for the song Underground Railroad. It's a real, as someone who has a bit of a soft spot for the blues, but also a huge hard spot for the prog, it's a really nice mash of sort of bluesy prog. And I was in a band at the time called the Angels of Mercy. They don't exist anymore, where we were trying to fuse blues and prog. We never kind of got it right, but that is a really good one to do. Beast in Our Time, Fallen Walls and Pedestals as well. Great album there. This came out in 2019, and yeah, I saw Steve Hackett on the tour for this one. So that's it. Thank you very much for watching. Please, please, please subscribe if you haven't done so already. Please like this video, please share it, and please stay in touch. Thank you very much, and we'll see you next time, boys and girls. Bye bye.